Your grace is here with me. The richness of your beauty's all I see. The brightness of your glory has arrived. In your presence, God, I'm completely satisfied. For you, I sing, I dance, I rejoice, it's divine romance. Lift my heart and my hands, show my love, show my an ocean flows from you of deep love. Yeah, it's filling up the room. Your innocent blood has washed my guilty life. In your presence, God, I'm completely satisfied. For you, I sing, I dance, I rejoice, this divine romance. Lift my heart and my hands, show my love. So all for you, I sing, rejoice in this divine romance. Lift my heart in my hands, show my love, show my
Welcome everybody to Paradox today. We are so excited to have you here. Thankful that you joined us today. This is our third week that we're doing a survey or a poll at pollev.com/paradox, and we just want to thank you so much for everyone who participates. I do want to remind everyone it is anonymous, so feel free to head over to pollev.com/paradox. You can find that link below and join our survey there. Today we have 5 questions. First question is, what is the highest recorded free fall parachute jump? The second question is, how many pounds does the heaviest recorded carrot weigh? Number 3 is, how tall, when standing on his hind legs, is the tallest recorded dog? Number 4, the longest recorded fingernails on a single hand measure an aggregate length of how long? And the final question is, what is your favorite thing for the pastor to reference during sermons? So please head over to www.pollev.com/paradox and join us in taking the poll there. And finally, like we do every week, we just want to take a moment and come together with the week that we've had, both the good and the bad, and just come together and share our experiences through the week. Today, we're honored to have KC Hohensee sharing the Lamentation, and Tammy Mathis sharing the celebration. So during the songs, we invite you to make a comment below and share your lamentations and celebrations with us today. Thank you.
Good morning, Paradox. I'll be sharing this morning's lamentation. God, who creates and loves us all, we turn to you as we lament the loss of community with family and friends. You are a creative God. You made each of us in your image, and in that image we were created for the fullness of community. Yet society has failed to heed the warnings and recommendations of quarantine, rejecting a way out of this tumultuousness. We find ourselves quarantined and separated from each other. Where trips, visits, and experiences were originally planned, we instead grieve the lost memories. We have experienced a profound loss. We feel the loss of our connection with others and our connection with God. Grief remains. You are a comforting God. You understand the sorrows, grief, and pain of your children. We feel separated from you through our loss and grief. Inspire us to stand with those who believe differently and open our eyes to the light of separating a person from their opinions. You are a loving God. You create a diverse humanity to love you and to love one another. Our value comes from you as our creator. We confess we fall short of your intentions. We judge and discriminate against one another. We have created and sustained a system based on the sin of selfishness, which proclaims that our ideas are at the center of our value. Selfishness denies your love for all your children, denies your invitation to us to love one another. Selfishness privileges some of your children and oppresses others, giving rise to events such as the continued rise and spread of COVID-19, which is disproportionately affecting our siblings of color. You are a merciful God. Forgive us for how we fall short. Forgive us for how often we fall short. Pour your Holy Spirit afresh upon us. Open us to the healing you offer. Draw us together. Lead us from despair to wholeness, that we might love one another and work to end COVID-19. You are a faithful God. We give thanks for the lives that have been spared even amongst COVID-19. We give thanks for the ways you are at work within the brokenness of our lives and the woundedness of our communities and nation. We give thanks that through Jesus we are free to join in your work. Through the Holy Spirit, we are empowered to join in your transformational work. Happy Sabbath, Paradox.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us. Above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you will join us, and the world will be one. say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. Hope someday you will join us, and the world will live as one.
Good morning, Paradox. I know that in the season that we're in, sometimes it's much easier to lament than to celebrate. But when I was asked to do this earlier this week, I actually sat down and really started thinking about some of the things that I had in my own life to celebrate. I started writing a list, and as I was writing, I mean, the list got so incredibly long that I actually started it started being remorseful that I had forgotten some of the blessings that I had. So I wanted to just give you, some of the highlights that I had written down on my list are just that my family is safe and that they are healthy, and that's a reason to celebrate. We've had birthdays this week, with one person turning 99, which is incredible. Such a great thing to be able to acknowledge and be grateful for. I have someone in my life who brings me fresh organic vegetables. I've had tomatoes and cucumbers and corn, and it's amazing, and I'm so grateful. I've reconnected with some of my friends in college. I have not seen them in decades, and they've started a Zoom chat, and we're all communicating and getting back together. It's been really fantastic. And Shannon, my daughter, she turned in her vet school application this week. And I have to say that it's such a great thing when your children, when you see them accomplish things and do great things. There are so many small and large blessings that we all share. And one last thing I had was that I was in a store yesterday. I had something to return, and I was going down the aisle, and I don't know if you guys know the brand Life is Good, but you can see me. I'm wearing a shirt today. Hopefully you can see the Life is Good. But there was a rack of them, and they were all on clearance. And I was thinking to myself, wow, people have lost their positivity. They've lost their gratitude. And I swooped in and I literally brought home the whole rack almost, I think. So Shannon and I will be wearing those shirts for a long time. But I just wanted to remind you all to treasure every moment, to be really grateful, and to celebrate that life really is good.
There's a world at war, caught in suffering, silent casualties. Oh God, grant us peace. In these sleepless nights, I can hardly breathe. Despite brutality, I know that we'll be free. I know that we'll be free. Let the light in, keep it shining. Let it break into the darkness. Our love dares us to see we'll all be free. In these desperate times, love will hold us near. Love will join our hands, teach us to have no fear. So we lay our hate down to watch their feet when we see our brother. Oh, we'll all be free. Oh yes, we'll all be free. Let the light in, keep it shining. Let it break into the darkness. All the love dares us to see, we'll all be free. free, free. We'll all be free. We'll be free, free. We'll all be free. We'll be free, free. We'll all be free. We'll be free, free as we'll all be free. We are free, free. We'll all be free. We are free, free. We'll all be free. Let the light in, keep it shining. Let it break into the darkness. All the love there's us to see. We'll all be free. Let the light in, keep it shining. Let it break into the darkness. All the love there's us to see. We'll all be free. We'll all be free. We'll all be free.
I invite you to pray with me now. Dear God, may you give us the courage to receive your grace in our heartache. May you give us the generosity to give away your grace in our joy. And may you give us the inspiration to see the abundance of your grace all around us. In your name we pray. Amen. Awesome. Thank you. We're going to turn it over to Mike now as he goes over our poll results.
Well, thank you everybody who participated in the survey today. Let's get into the results and see what people think of some of these very important questions that we're doing right now. So first we had, what is the highest recorded free fall parachute jump? We have 42% say 35,000 feet. That is a fantastic guess, but a guess indeed, because the answer is in fact 135,898 feet. That is 25.7 miles high. It's a guy named Alan Eustace, a Google executive, who decided to do this. He floated up with a balloon taller than a football field for over 2 hours, and then free fell for nearly 4.5 minutes while breaking the sound barrier, going up to 822 miles an hour. So that was a bit mind-blowing to me as well, but in fact that is the case. And yeah, you can, in reference checking, that is in the Guinness Book of World Records, so it is there for you to go and look at. Number 2, how many pounds does the heaviest recorded carrot weigh? We have 47% at 17.9 and 40% at 22.4. It is in fact 22.4, so 40%. Got that right. It was grown in Minnesota on the guy's second try, and he was very proud to grow this gigantic carrot. You should look it up sometime. It looks like a tornado of carrots all together. It's pretty crazy. Number 3, we have how tall, when standing on his hind legs, is the tallest recorded dog. We have a pretty close split here between 9 feet 5 inches and 7 feet 4 inches. 53% of you did get it right. It is 7 feet 4 inches. He was 44 inches from foot to withers, which I just learned what withers were, which in fact is taller than your countertops. He was a big boy. His name was Zeus, and he lived to 5 years old. Number 4. We have the longest recorded fingernails on a single hand measured in aggregate length of how long? This is a pretty even split with 27%, each choosing 18 and 29 feet. The biggest number is 33% at 11 feet. And we have a few in at 34 feet. Those of you who chose 29 feet, you are correct. He, in fact, had 29 feet, 10 inches of fingernails. He had grown them since 1952, and his longest nail was his thumbnail at 6 feet, 6 inches. So another one you'll want to look up. It is impressive. He actually ended up cutting his nails, and you can visit that shrine if you would like to. That's up to you. And finally, what is your favorite thing for the pastor to reference during sermons? We had 20% say stories about their family, 27% say maps and timelines, 0% said sports stories, 20% Fast and Furious movies. Oh boy, that no sports stories and Fast and Furious references, that's fantastic. And 33% current events from the week. Again, we want to thank you guys so much for participating today, and thank you so much for joining us here at Paradox.
It's a good thing that I am not in school, because each of the last 2 weeks I've only got one question out of the 4 right. So I've clearly got to step up my game. Thank you so much for joining us here at Paradox. A couple of quick announcements before we dive into the sermon. The first announcement is that every week we do communion together here at Paradox. Whatever it is that you have to eat or drink at your house, feel free to get right now, because at the end of the service we'll take communion together to help shrink the distance between us. Also, we are so grateful for the people who donate and make this ministry possible at paradoxgiving.com. Thank you so much for the generosity you have shown us week in and week out. Also, next 2 weeks from now, we are doing a Paradox Film Festival, which does not require a lot of skill. On Saturday night, September 19, you will log into a Zoom call. We will give you a prompt, and you'll have a couple of hours to work on a short film. You will then submit it Saturday night, and then we will watch it on Sunday night together. We would love for you to participate. Everyone's invited, families, professionals, not so professionals. You will hear more information about this next week, and we would love for you to join us in Paradox Film Festival. It's all online, and we'd love to see you there. You can also find out more about Paradox by visiting our website at paradoxredlands.com. And if you've been here before, you know that every weekend we have kids and youth at 9:30. They've been doing a series called This Is Us for the entire summer. It comes to an end next week. It's been a great series, but the week after that, on September 19, we are starting a new series in Paradox Kids called Anti-Racist Kids. If you've wondered how to talk to your kids about racism, this is what this whole series is about. Then at 10 o'clock on the weekend, we have church, which is happening now. And then we have a discussion group that takes place after the service. It's on Instagram. You can go to our Instagram page, which is at Paradox Redlands. Kelly Phipps will be asking me questions today about our sermon, about the sermon today. And we'd love for you to join. You can ask questions then, and we'd love to see you there. Which brings us to today. And today's sermon is about marriage. And it's about marriage, and I tell you this because now I know that this topic may be a concern for some of you. After all, I know that many of you tuned in today hoping to hear specific details about the cruelty of the Assyrian Empire and why the anger of God is therefore justified against them. Not only that, but at Paradox, you are used to hearing sermon titles that contain the book of the Bible that we are studying. So you may have a nervous question in the back of your head as you hear the topic of marriage being brought up. Is this pastor going to mention the Bible in this sermon? To that question, all I can tell you is it's going to be okay. Relax. I am going to talk about the Bible today, and the Assyrians are going to violently return next week. So if you hear this sermon on marriage and think, could have used more discussion about siege tactics, then make sure to come back next week and you will not be disappointed. As I was saying, today's sermon is about marriage. Our congregation at Paradox has a wide experience with marriage. Some are too young to even consider marriage. Many people are single. A few just started dating. A handful of couples are weighing whether or not they are going to get married. A couple recently got engaged in our church. Several were married in the last year, and others celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary recently. Now, some are happily married, others are miserably married, and some are divorced. I hope and pray that wherever you are within the wide experience of marriage, that this sermon will be received as a testimony that love is real. Even if you have no desire to ever be married in your life, the pursuit of love in every form is what makes life worth living. And love is always worth celebrating. So today's sermon is a celebration of love. And I am speaking about marriage. The form of this sermon is a letter written to my wife. And the title is Dear Kimi. The letter reads, Dear Kimi, all the way back in 2008, you and I first met on a mission trip to Kenya. 5 months later, on May 29, 2009, we went on our first date to Isabella's. The date went so well that we took a picture to commemorate our first dinner together. We look like babies, don't we? We were just 25 years old and brand new in our careers as a pastor and a dental hygienist. Our lives were never the same from that picture forward. I remember thinking that you were like a neutron star of energy, filled with an inexhaustible passion for life, friends, and activities. Similar to a magnet, you pulled me up mountains. You dared me to ride bicycles in downtown San Diego at midnight. And you even enticed me to run a half marathon. After this half marathon was over, you thought, wow, I found someone who will run half marathons with me for the rest of my life. And I thought, wow, I have no desire to ever run that far again. A few months into our relationship, we sat in your Honda Accord in the University Church parking lot and lost ourselves completely in conversation. We discussed anything and everything, and time melted away. After a while, the burned CD I made for you began to play Fake Plastic Trees by Radiohead. We fell silent as the song took over the moment. We gently held hands, and we breathed in the wonder of the present moment. While the lyrics of that song border on nonsensical, the emotional tone of that song perfectly described the epoch we experienced. After the music ended, I believe that you said, well, that's our song now. And to this day, the minute Fake Plastic Trees is played, we start dancing. And it transports us back to the complete bliss of our early romance. After dating for 10 months, I knew that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with you. You are the coolest person I have ever met. And that's saying something, because I know Eric Peterson, but somehow you are even cooler than him. And so on March 19, 2009, I surprised you at the Salk Institute in La Jolla and asked you to marry me. After a pause, you enthusiastically said yes. Now I know that true love waits, but we couldn't help ourselves. Before we were married, we had a dog out of wedlock, and we adopted Bella into our lives. 7 months after our engagement, on September 5, 2010, our friends and family gathered in Dean and Candy's front yard for our wedding. That's right, 10 years ago today, you walked down the aisle as Lorelei sang The Way I Am. If at home you are wondering why I'm wearing a suit and tie, it's because there will be only one time in my life that my 10-year wedding anniversary falls on a day when I am preaching. So you can bet that when that happens, I'm going to wear the suit that I wore for my wedding. Tim delivered a funny and heartfelt homily, and then you stole the show with your hilarious, witty, insightful, personal, and romantic vows. For our Unity activity, we planted a tree as Jeff, Jerry, Jeremy, and Chad played our song, Fake Plastic Trees. After that song, I surprised you by playing a song that I wrote for you called Growing Suspicion. You later described this song as, quote, pure corn. I'm going to take that as a compliment. I mean, you like corn, Kimi, right? Shortly thereafter, we were pronounced husband and wife. We kissed, and then we danced our way down the aisle as Lorelei brought down the house with Party in the USA. Our reception overflowed with delicious food, speeches, laughter, videos, and joy. I'll never forget your ever-present smile from that evening. Then we walked out into a tunnel of sparklers, hopped in our getaway car, and drove away into the night. 2 minutes later, a police officer pulled us over. He stated some official reason for stopping us, but we all know the real reason he pulled us over is because it is a crime for you and I to be so dangerously in love. Our wedding day, 10 years ago today, was the perfect day. Happy anniversary, Kimi. The past 10 years are an ocean of memories to me. These memories are impossible to quantify on a spreadsheet, and yet they are the substance of what composes the abstract concept of marriage coalescing from the 10 years we have dedicated to each other. I love you more than ever after sharing 3,653 days together as a married couple. I'm writing this letter to you today because I want to fully express how grateful I am to be married to you. So often, human beings miss opportunities to formally express the appreciation they feel for the relationships that matter to us. We often wait until someone's funeral to say the kindest things about them, which is not the way things should be. This letter, on this anniversary, is written with the intent to write in big, bold, capital underlined letters, I love you, Kimberly, Don, Primero, Tangunan, Hadley, and I love being married to you. While I could think of 3,653 different reasons I love being married to you, I felt that this letter might be more effective if I narrowed it down to my top 3. Now, these top 3 reasons that I love being married to you are not original ideas. They actually belong to an ancient woman who penned one of my favorite books in the Bible, the Song of Songs. And so let's begin with the first reason I love being married to you. To talk about this reason, I want to tell you 4 stories. Story number 1 takes place in Kyoto, Japan, during our 2nd year of marriage. We went to Katsura Imperial Villa, which is off the beaten tourist path, but very much on the beaten architectural tour path. The reason for this is because Katsura is considered by the architectural community to be the most beautiful wooden buildings in the entire world. We walked through the gate, turned down the first path, and the beauty of the gardens completely overwhelmed me. The landscape melded into each man-made structure and gave the impression that every abode naturally grew out of the landscape. Steve Jobs once said, the most sublime thing I've ever seen are the gardens around Kyoto. Tears began to form in my eyes as I was overwhelmed by the sheer beauty before me. I turned to you during our tour and stammered, Kimi, this garden is a transcendent experience. You responded with just one word. Huh? I said, Kimi, I can't believe this. This place is beautiful. And you said, oh, the garden? Yeah, it's nice. Sorry, our tour guide really needs a deep cleaning on his teeth, and that's all I can think about right now. Story number 2, from our 6th year of marriage. That 6th year was a tough year because I was very publicly being removed from a pastoral position that I loved. On top of that, I wasn't sure I had a path forward in ministry. So I thought that this upcoming sermon might be my last sermon ever. 4 days before I gave what might have been my final sermon, Maya, who was just 2 years old, began crying in her crib at 6 in the morning. I got out of bed to go get her and walked into Maya's room. Maya saw me coming to get her out of the bed and in her tiny voice offered her opinion of me. She said, "No, Daddy. How about Mommy?" Dejected on all fronts, I returned to our bedroom and told you what our daughter said. You laughed out loud, in my face. And in between your chuckles, you wheezed out, "Go back in her room and see if she rejects you again." Now, I was mad at you because I wanted your sympathy for my multidimensional rejection. But you kept on laughing, so much so that it became contagious, and I started laughing. Apparently, we can laugh no matter how difficult the circumstances are around us. Story number 3, from our 1st year of marriage. We had had a particularly busy week, and I was scheduled to preach on Saturday at Crosswalk. On Thursday night, you said, Craig, promise me that we won't do anything on Saturday after church that requires effort. I promised. The very next day, a friend of mine from Montana, Yvette, texted me and told me that she was in town and that she would like to get together. Fully aware of the promise from the day before, I sat down with you. I promised that you did not have to raise a finger to have Yvette over to our house. I told you that I would do all of the cooking, all of the cleaning, and all of the entertaining. Knowing that I am exhausted after I preach, you skeptically said, okay, she can come over if you want, But remember, you have to do everything. Saturday arrived, you saw me at church before the service started, and with a bemused and competitive smile, you coyly asked, "So, Craig, what's for lunch today?" I told you, Kimi, don't worry about it. It's all under control. You said to me, it doesn't sound like you have anything planned. To which I responded, Kimi, do not worry. The Lord will provide. An hour later, after the sermon, I descended from the stage and started talking to Yvette and to you. My Aunt Marilee walked up to give me a hug and offer some encouraging words. She then said, "Craig, do you have any lunch plans?" Hope surged through my body. I strategically said, "Well, Yvette is in town, so we are getting lunch with her, but we don't have any plans yet for what we are doing." Marilee then said, "Well, Craig, why don't you just bring Yvette over to our place for lunch? I'll do all the cooking and I have plenty of food for all of you." I quickly said, "We will be there, Marilee." And in disbelief, you said, "No, Marilee, don't help him out of this." I turned to you and said, "Kimi, the Lord has provided." And with great annoyance, you said, "Well, then the Lord's name is Marilee." Story number 4 from our 10th year of marriage. Just a few months ago, our daughter Maya was having a day. Her emotions were the equivalent of a nuclear reactor meltdown. In an effort to contain the disaster, I took away Maya's favorite doll, Joss, as a form of punishment. Now, to describe Joss as Maya's favorite doll is an understatement. She loves it when we style her hair and Joss's hair to match. For crying out loud, our daughter owns matching PJs with this doll. So taking Joss away from Maya is the judicial equivalent in our household of the full force of the law. Maya reacted to this punishment with a meltdown on top of the previous meltdown. A few moments later, you went into Maya's room and negotiated with her. You came out of her room and, acting as the Supreme Court, found that her punishment was cruel and unusual. So you said, "Craig, you need to give Joss back to Maya." After delivering the verdict, you went into Bodhi's room to put him to bed. I retrieved Joss, made a stop at Bodhi's room, held up the doll where you were, looked right at you and said, "Oh, Kimi." Those were the 2 words that I said, and that was it. I then took Joss back to Maya's room and lay down with Maya to help her fall asleep. Within seconds, Bodhi, our 3-year-old son, came into Maya's room. He was very concerned. "Daddy," he said, "I want you to kiss Mommy." "What?" I said. "Daddy, you need to kiss Mommy." Bewildered, I said, "Oh, okay, thanks, Bodhi. I'll kiss Mommy tomorrow. Go back to bed." "No," Bodhi said with defiance. "I need you to kiss Mommy right now." From just 2 words and a side eye, our son picked up that there was tension between his parents. Mostly my fault, let's be honest about things. He wanted us to resolve this tension. He wanted to witness make-up kisses, and he wanted this witness now. I got out of Maya's bed, went to you, and said, "Hey, this is for Bodhi." And I kissed you several times. "There," Bodhi said, "that's better." Kimi, I love all 4 of these stories. No matter how many times I tell these stories, they bring a smile to my face. The first story is about how differently we see the world. Second is about laughing even when life sucks. The third is about the joy we found in playful competition. And the fourth is about kisses. When people ask me what my favorite Bible verse is, for the past couple of years, I have answered Song of Songs, chapter 5, verse 1. Through all of chapter 4, the authoress writes about a passionate romantic encounter with moving poetry, dynamic metaphor, and skillful artistry. When the encounter ends, she then summarizes all 4 of the previous chapters in this book with a blessing for any married couple that is in love. She writes, "Eat, friends, drink, and be drunk with love." I love this verse because it reminds us that a romantic relationship's primary purpose is not to be endured, but instead it is meant to be enjoyed. But not just merely enjoyed. Enjoyed to the point of abundant excess. So much of Christianity stresses moderation, restraint, and balance. But here, the authoress of Song of Songs, 2,500 years before Beyonce, encourages everyone to enjoy their romantic relationship to the point of being drunk in love. Kimi, the first reason I love being married to you is because our marriage is overflowing with an abundance of joy. I used to detest getting dressed up, but then I married you, and I absolutely love getting dressed up and going to weddings with you as my date. Dancing at weddings? Before we were married, I sat in the shadows and waited for the dancing to end. But after we got married, I can't wait for the dance floor to open up at weddings because it means that I get to dance with you. Before our marriage, I used to get anxiety showing up to parties or weddings where I didn't know any people. But after we got married, we went to Rob and Amber's wedding in Moorhead, Minnesota. We didn't know a soul other than the bride and groom, and we had a blast. You know why? Because when you are by my side, I feel confident, I feel good about myself. I know that with you, a good conversation is always possible with new people. But I also know that if we get trapped in a horrible conversation, that we'll go back to the hotel room and laugh about it until our sides hurt. Kimi, I love being married to you because no matter where life leads us, when you are with me, I know that joy isn't too far around the corner. Which brings us to the second reason why I love being married to you. After we were married, we moved into a little house and began our lives together. In the first year of marriage, there were a lot of smiles. We took trips to Mammoth Lakes, to Ojai, to Monterey. I cheered you on as you ran the Huntington Beach half marathon. You brought our dog Bella to my youth program on Friday nights. But between all of the smiles in these pictures, reality roared to the surface as we began to realize the myriad differences between us. You loved to sit down and eat a delicious meal, and I preferred fast food. You thought that golf was the most boring sport ever created, and I loved playing 18. You enjoyed running through obstacle courses with a plethora of mud. I preferred not doing that. These differences were minor annoyances at first, but soon they began to drive a wedge between us. We drifted further and further apart while we began to argue with greater and greater frequency. On top of that stress, both of us were employed in unhealthy work environments. Our first year of marriage was our most difficult year of marriage, which is saying something, because I'm writing this letter in 2020, and yet even in 2020, you and I both agree that 2011 was more difficult for us. Right around our first anniversary, we reluctantly sat down for our first session of couples therapy. After a few pleasantries, the therapist asked how she could help us. We began telling our story and our struggles and the dead ends that we kept running into. As we talked about our problems, I thought for the first time that I might lose you. I hated that thought. Tears began to roll down my cheeks. We both cried a lot during that first session, didn't we? The thing I remember that came out of that first session is that while we had our problems, I could feel how much you wanted this to work. I could see it in your face, I could hear it in your voice, and it deeply reassured me. I hope that you feel the same about me when you look back on that day. After hearing about the problems in our marriage, the therapist said, "Well, this marriage can definitely be saved." I was relieved. She then gave us the tools that we needed to learn how to love our spouse for who they are, not who we wanted them to be. This reminds me of the ancient words of the authoress of Song of Songs. She lived in a time and place when marriage meant one thing to her society. Women are property to be owned by their husbands. In her poem, she dismantles the oppression of this patriarchal idea with her couplet, "My beloved is mine, and I am his." A few stanzas later on in the poem, she mirrors the previous couplet by writing, "I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine." Now, these poetic words from the authoress are a rock smashing through the glass palace of the patriarchy. Rather than viewing marriage as a misogynistic business transaction, she offers a vision of what marriage can be, a relationship where both partners are created as equal. Beyond equality, there is a paradox of mutual submission and confidence that is required for long-term love to thrive. You both have to be unapologetically you and apologetically belong to your partner in order to make marriage work. Our therapist tapped into this ancient wisdom by giving us permission to negotiate. We could be honest about activities and events that drained us, while also expressing desire for the other's participation in the things that we enjoyed. She encouraged us to own who we were, while simultaneously building our lives around each other. These negotiations and the paradox of mutual submissive confidence did not come naturally to us. But we both had a desire to make this work, and that desire is what drove us forward. Here's the crazy thing. When we started to implement these negotiations, we started to change each other. Now, I love going to nice restaurants. I love sitting down, and I love enjoying exquisite food. Now, you love going golfing with me and playing 18 holes on the links. Before we had kids, we took a trip to Japan together, which was my choice. And you traveled with me for hours to go stare at concrete. And I loved it. The next year, we flew to Patagonia, which was your choice, and hiked around in extreme conditions. I got knocked over by the intense wind, and you loved it. After more than 10 years of marriage, we are more ourselves than ever, while also belonging to each other. Kimi, the second reason I love being married to you is because I am yours and you are mine. Not too long ago, we were sitting around a dinner table when Mike asked everyone to discuss their favorite dessert. Before anyone could answer, I said, Kimi is going to tell everyone what her favorite dessert is, and then I'm going to tell her that she's wrong, and then share with her what her actual favorite dessert is. She will then say, you know what? Craig is right. That is my favorite dessert. Intrigued by this proposition, you accepted the challenge. You thought about it for a moment and said, my favorite dessert is cheesecake. I exhaled. I knew I had you. Actually, I said, Kimi's favorite dessert is a sampler tray, where she gets to try many smaller desserts in one sitting. The wider the variety, the more she enjoys dessert. She would prefer many tiny different desserts over one plate of cheesecake any day of the week. You said, hey, I didn't know that was an option. But you're right. I do prefer a sampler tray to just about any piece of cheesecake. But this works both ways. A few years before that, you told me that you had a surprise for me for my upcoming 30th birthday. I was surprised that you told me this because you know that I don't like surprises. But then my birthday rolled around and you gave me a gift. Inside was a book composed of letters from friends, family members, colleagues, and even a few celebrities. This took me by complete surprise. My love language is words of affirmation, and this gift meant the world to me. If you would have asked me, Craig, what do you want for your 30th birthday? I would not have answered, well, I want a book of letters from my friends. Because it would have never occurred to me that I wanted that. But you know me better than I know myself. I hope that you feel the same about me. I think of all the times that you and I sat on a couch and talked about what we want to do with our money, where we want to live, whether we want to remodel our kitchen or travel to Machu Picchu, what cars we want to drive, and who exactly is picking up the kids on Tuesday at 3:30. All of these conversations are logistics in the moment. But when you look at those conversations from a long-term perspective, they are the moments when we express what we want to each other and listen to what the other wants from us. I have found this to be incredibly romantic. None of these conversations are depicted in romantic comedies, and yet they are the foundation of what our marriage is built upon. I can't thank you enough for listening to me when I tell you what I want in life, and I am grateful that you continue to share with me what you want in our life together. I am filled with appreciation for the decisions that we make and what we work toward together. Kimi, I love being married to you because I am yours and you are mine, and you are mine and I am yours. The third reason I love being married to you. Now, to get to this and to start this discussion, we have to go back to the Song of Songs and read 2 verses written by the authoress. Now, the authoress writes to her lover these words, "Set me as a seal upon your heart, as a seal upon your arm. For love is strong as death, passion fierce as the grave. The flames burst forth, it is a blazing flame. Surging waters cannot quench love, floodwaters cannot overflow it. If someone were to offer all his possessions to buy love, the offer would be utterly despised." In a few lines, the authoress shares with us that love is the great counterbalance to death. As humans, it can be easy to view this world as a cold, harsh, and deadly place. But the authoress objects to that verdict being placed on our shared existence. What about love, she asks. You cannot discount the love that we experience in this lifetime, she says. Life is good for the authoress, even if heaven does not exist, because love is possible in this life, and love, according to the authoress, is as strong as death. She then reveals the greatest secret of love. No matter the riches you acquire, no matter the power you amass, no matter the ranks that you ascend, love is not for sale. Love is only available to those who give themselves to love. When I look at our wedding pictures today, 10 years after they were taken, I notice how young we look. The optimism and hope that is in our eyes is endearing in its youthful naivete for what lies beyond the horizon. And here we are, a decade later, a few more wrinkles and a handful of gray hairs. We've had our fair share of arguments, emotional overreactions, and uncertain struggles. And yet I look at the space between these 2 pictures, and all I feel is an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Because between these pictures are the most beautiful and happy memories in my lifetime. Do you remember, Kimi, what's happened between these pictures? We skied with Lindsey Vaughn in Montana. We backpacked in the Sierra Nevadas. We saw Ben Folds in concert 3 times. We biked and sailed and flew around the world. We got pregnant. Okay, you got pregnant. We baby mooned in Hawaii. We held each other's hand as Maya was rushed off to the NICU shortly after she was born, and we cried tears of joy when the nurses returned and placed her on your chest. We brought our daughter home to our house on Christmas Day. You became a mother, and I became a father. We got kicked out of one church, so we started at a better church. You held me through depression. I held you through your second pregnancy. We both felt a lump in our throats when we dropped our daughter off at preschool for the first time. You gave birth to Bodhi, and somehow we made it through 2 years of sleepless nights with that child. We took our kids to Disneyland a lot. We experienced the uncompromising joy of the Book of Mormon and the incredible inspiration of Hamilton. We hiked around Mount Rainier and took the architectural river tour in Chicago. We are currently enduring a global pandemic together, but we refuse to let it get the best of us. We cheer with pride for our kids as they rode their bikes for the first time, and we hung our heads in shame when our kids created this dance during quarantine, all on their own.
Shake the booty, shake the booty, shake the booty, shake the booty, shake the booty.
Our son loves to golf. Our daughter loves to read. And we graduated our daughter from kindergarten through remote learning. Kimi, the third reason I love being married to you is because you give everything you have to this marriage and to me. The effort you pour into our family and to me is the most generous, kind, beautiful, and wonderful gift of grace that I have ever received. I may never be famous. I may never be rich. I may never write a New York Times best-selling book. But I can't really be mad about missing out on those things because I am married to you. I'm convinced that being married to you is the greatest experience that this life has to offer me. Who cares about career accolades when you can have a happy marriage? The authoress is right. Love is the great counterbalance to death. And I cannot see this world as deprived, hopeless, or cruel because I have experienced a boundless profusion of love from you and from others. There must be something good and in control and loving at the core of our existence. 10 years later, Kimi, I love being married to you because of the joy that we share. I love being married to you because I am yours and you are mine. And I love being married to you because of the generosity of the time and effort that you give to this marriage and to me. Thank you for these past 10 years. I can't wait to see what the next decade holds. I loved you then. I love you now. And I will love you forever. Love, Craig.
A green plastic watering can for a fake Chinese rubber plant and fake plastic earth. That she bought from a rubber man in a town full of rubber plants to get rid of herself. It wears her out. It wears her out. It wears her out. It wears her out. She lives with a broken man, a cracked polystyrene man who just crumbles and burns. He used to do surgery for girls in the 80s, but gravity always wins. It wears him out. It wears him out. It wears him out. It wears. She looks like the real thing. She tastes like the real thing. My fake plastic love. But I can't help but feeling It wears me out. It wears me out. And if I could be who you wanted, and if I could be who you wanted all the time, all the time.
Wow, thank you so much for celebrating the anniversary with my wife and I. I hope it didn't catch you too much by surprise and you wanted something else from church today. I hope that through this letter that ultimately you will believe that love in all of its forms is worth celebrating, because that's what's good about life. And when we talk about communion and what communion means, it is ultimately an affirmation that life is good and that life has love within it and that it is as strong as death. Because this is why God sent God's only Son, because there was something that God loved in the mess of our humanity. So as we take these emblems, may you think about the goodness of what it means to be alive. And with that, we'll begin with the bread, which is Christ's body broken for you. Take and eat. And the cup, which is Christ's blood spilled for you. Take and drink. Will you pray with me? Dear God, whatever it is that we encounter and whatever it is that we value as good, may you give us space to celebrate that. Lord, personally, I want to say thank you for what this marriage has meant in the last 10 years to my wife and I. We just ask that you continue to guide us and help us to be loving toward each other and toward others around us. And Lord, if anybody else that is listening to this feels like they are deprived of love, or they are in a marriage that is struggling, or things fell apart for them, Lord, I ask that you encourage them and that you show them the love that is around them, so that everyone who is listening may believe that it is good to be alive. In your name we pray. Amen. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back next week. We hope you have a great Sabbath and a great long weekend, and stay cool during this oppressive heat. Take care.